I spent weeks making a Christmas gift with my whole heart. My parents returned it without a word. Months later, they asked for $5,000 to help Pearl expand the salon. Imagine pouring your heart into a gift, each tiny detail crafted with love, only for it to be sent back. Recipient refused, emblazoned across the box like a scarlet letter. That bitter December day, watching snowflakes melt into the packaging, wasn't just about a returned present. It was the gut-wrenching moment I realized my own family had refused me. I just stood there, outside my apartment, the December wind biting at my face, snowflakes melting right into the cardboard box clutched in my hands. Recipient refused. Return to sender. The words burned into my vision. Inside, I could see the edge of the gift wrap untouched. 3 weeks of my life, every evening after my first professional design gig, pouring into those handcrafted Christmas lights. Each tiny bulb, each delicate wire, it was a piece of my heart, sent home to Boulder. Even love, when unreciprocated, can be returned to sender, I whispered, my voice swallowed by the swirling snow. That box felt so much heavier now than when I'd mailed it. Clutching it against my chest, the memories came rushing back, uninvited but relentless. In our middle-class Boulder home, the roles were set in stone. My sister, Pearl, was the sweet one, the fragile angel who needed protecting. Me? I was the strong one, the one who never needed attention. Mom and Dad, they made sure those lines were never, ever blurred. I remember my 10th birthday. Mom frantically frosting store-bought cupcakes an hour before my friends arrived, Dad hanging a single paper streamer. 3 months earlier, Pearl's party? Handcrafted invitations, a custom cake, our backyard transformed into a fairy wonderland. Royalty doesn't mind keeping things simple, Mom had told a curious neighbor. She's always been so independent. Christmas mornings were the same story. Pearl's gifts overflowing, a cascade of art supplies for her creative spirit. Mine? A neat, practical stack of sensible clothes and school supplies. The cold seeping into my jacket mirrored the chill in my heart. The truth I'd buried for years finally clawed its way to the surface. I was desperate for validation, disguised as independence. You're fine on your own, royalty, Dad would always say whenever I achieved something. Never, I'm proud of you, or well done. Just a confirmation that I required nothing from them. A familiar knot tightened in my throat. All those years, being told I was fine on my own, it built this impenetrable exterior. But inside? Inside, a woman still ached for the acknowledgement she never got. My pattern was crystal clear now. Overgiving, endlessly, trying to earn a love that was never freely given. Sending handmade gifts year after year, met with minimal acknowledgement. Bearing the burden of always being fine even when I was absolutely breaking. I looked down at those returned Christmas lights again. This wasn't just some store-bought thing. It was my first real, handcrafted creation. Made with my hands, sent with my heart, the note inside had read. They refused it. Didn't even open it. The hurt, a raw, crashing wave, swept over me. But this time, something else rose alongside it. Indignation. A spark of anger, hot and sharp, that felt foreign, yet strangely, perfectly right. Instead of doing what I would have before, tossing it in the trash, I walked slowly up to my modest apartment and carefully placed the package on a shelf. A tiny act, but it felt monumental. I deserved better than this, I whispered to the empty room. My phone buzzed, shattering the silence. Pearl. Of course. I answered automatically, like I always did. Her voice, so cheerful, so utterly oblivious, bubbled through the speaker. Royalty. So glad I caught you. I need your help with Christmas shopping. There's this adorable boutique. Not a word about the package. Not a hint that she even knew it existed. Then, in the background, I heard Mom. Ask if Royalty can send money for the new curtains while you're at it. Pearl repeated it, just like an echo, without missing a beat. The ones we saw at Restoration Hardware would be perfect, but you know how Dad is about spending money on decorating. No questions about my life, my Christmas plans, nothing. I stared at that rejected package on my shelf, then back at the phone. The word no formed in my mouth, foreign and terrifying, threatening to spill out. But instead? Yes, of course I'll help, I heard myself say. Because that's just what I did. That's who I was. The helper. The giver. The one who's always fine. But that box on my shelf? It was already telling a different story. And deep down, I hoped someday my answer would too. Days later, it was the same grind. My student ID swiping through the cafeteria time clock for the third time that day. Morning shift at the library, afternoon classes, then evening service at the campus dining hall. The manager just nodded. Another double, Torres, he asked, not really expecting an answer. I forced a tired smile. Tuition doesn't pay itself, right? Unlike Pearl's tuition, which apparently just paid itself, no effort required. I'd been home last weekend, and there it was, her gleaming new Volkswagen, parked in the driveway. The downtown Boulder apartment she'd casually mentioned over dinner, both, naturally, parent-funded. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it until my break, then saw 3 missed calls from Pearl. I stepped outside into the crisp Colorado night, returning her call. She picked up instantly. I've been trying to reach you all day. Working, I said, leaning against the cold brick wall. What's up? Mom and Dad are taking me to Aspen this weekend. Can you send me some spending money? My account's a little low. The irony was a punch to the gut. My bank account was negative, student loans piling up, while I worked 3 jobs. Pearl's life? Debt-free, funded by the very same parents who lectured me about financial independence. I get paid Friday, I said, already calculating how little I'd have left after my own rent and groceries. I can send you something then. She squealed with delight, like I'd offered her the world, not the last scraps of my paycheck. Winter bled into spring, then into summer. Each year, I'd still send Christmas gifts home. Smaller than those lights, yes, but still thoughtfully chosen. A leather wallet for Dad. Mom's favorite perfume. A sketchbook of handmade paper for Pearl. Their acknowledgement? It usually arrived in January. One store-bought card, signed Love from Us and Pearl, in my mother's neat handwriting. No personal note. No mention of my gifts. They're just busy, I'd tell myself, but the hollow ache in my chest knew better. The pattern solidified, became terrifyingly clear during my junior year. I collapsed after a week of fever and stabbing pain. Emergency appendectomy. No insurance. We wish we could help, Mom said over the phone, while I stared, dazed, at the mountain of hospital bills. Things are tight right now. 2 weeks later, Pearl called, bubbling with excitement about her upcoming European vacation, London, Paris, Rome. Parent-funded, of course. That's when the realization settled in my stomach like concrete. My family saw me as a resource. Not a daughter. Not a sister. Just a well they could draw from. Over the years, Pearl perfected her timing. Her calls for small loans or tiny favors always came the day after payday, like she had. A direct line to my bank statements. And her voice? It would morph into this delicate, almost childlike whisper when she needed something, that fragility a calculated weapon. You know, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important, she'd say, her tone suggesting she'd crumble into dust if I refused. Mom, meanwhile, reinforced the family hierarchy with practiced precision. Family is everything, royalty, she'd remind me during our monthly calls. And you're the responsible one. We all have our roles. The stakes, I realized, were becoming painfully clear, my financial and emotional well-being versus their endless expectations. Then came the $8,000 loan. That changed everything. Pearl called one Tuesday evening, her voice practically vibrating with unusual enthusiasm. I've found the perfect opportunity, she gushed. A nail salon for sale downtown. The owner's retiring, selling for half market value. Her business plan actually sounded surprisingly solid, equipment included, established clientele, 6-month projected ROI. I'll pay you back with interest within 6 months, she promised, her voice honeyed. This could be our thing, royalty. Sisters in business. Hope, this fragile, ridiculous thing, actually fluttered in my chest. The possibility that this exchange might finally shift our relationship. An investment, not just in a business, but in a better connection with my sister. The next morning, I emptied my savings account. 6 months later, not a word about repayment, Not a peep about the salon's progress. When I finally mustered the courage to ask during a holiday visit home, Pearl suddenly had to take a phone call. Mom, sliding into her vacant seat, patted my hand with practiced sympathy. "There will be no repayment, dear," she said, her voice soft but firm. There never was going to be. The words hit me like a physical blow. I mumbled an excuse and fled to the bathroom, locking the door before the tears came. The crushing realization spread through me, cold and heavy. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource. Back at work later that week, Marcus, a colleague, noticed my distraction during a design team meeting. He found me later in the break room, stirring sugar into my perpetually cold coffee. "You okay? You've checked your phone 6 times in the last hour." I showed him Pearl's latest text, another request for just a small loan. Marcus studied the message, then looked me square in the eyes. "They treat you like an ATM, not a sister." His bluntness startled me, but God, did it resonate. The painful clarity. The next week, my college friend Rachel suggested coffee. She listened patiently to my halting, choked-up explanation of my family dynamics. Then, with gentle directness, she asked, "Have you ever considered therapy for these family boundary issues?" 3 days later, I was sitting in a modestly furnished office, facing a therapist with kind eyes and a notepad. "They just expect me to give and give," I admitted, the words painful in their raw honesty. "And I always do." The therapist nodded, watching me carefully. "What if," she asked, setting down her pen, "you said no next time?" The question hung in the air, a revelation. A complete paradigm shift. 2 weeks later, Pearl called again, this time about expanding the salon. She needed another $5,000 for new equipment. My newfound clarity felt both empowering and utterly terrifying. "I can't," I said. The words felt foreign on my tongue, but they were out. "I don't have it to give." A long silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable, before Pearl's voice returned, sharper than before. "You've always been so selfish with your money, Royalty." Within hours, Mom's guilt campaign began. Aunts and uncles called all week, each conversation a variation on the same theme. "Why are you abandoning your sister?" But this time, I held my ground. "I've already invested in the business," I calmly repeated. "I can't contribute more right now." Eventually, the calls stopped. Family gatherings became exercises in polite distance. I was suddenly cast as the villain, just for daring to protect myself. My small victory carried a heavy emotional toll. The family rejection was a constant ache beneath my professional smile. But still, something had shifted. A quiet, undeniable recognition that I deserved better than this. That realization didn't erase the pain, but it did illuminate a possible path forward. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror at work, really looked this time. There was a woman there who was finally starting to recognize her own worth. The journey ahead felt daunting, yes, but for the very first time, I actually believed I could survive it. Then, the email came. The subject line, offer, senior designer position, Hayworth Design Group, Los Angeles. I'd been too scared to open it for 3 days. But now I clicked. Read it again. And again. A prestigious firm, creative freedom, a huge salary increase, a relocation stipend. A chance to work with clients who appreciated exactly the kind of modern vintage fusion design I loved. It was 2,000 miles from Boulder. I typed 2 words. I accept. Later, I composed an email to my family, not a call. The words flowed easily now, factual and calm. My move, my new job, my decision to start fresh. I clicked send before I could second-guess myself. Then I silenced my phone. The next few weeks were a blur of packing, organizing, planning. I discovered a pure joy in selecting furniture, creating a space that finally reflected me, warm woods, textured fabrics, vintage pieces mixed with modern lines. Each purchase felt like a declaration. This space is mine. These choices are mine. No one else's opinion matters here. I didn't hear the insistent knocking at first, too engrossed in bubble-wrapping ceramic vases. When it finally pierced through my focus, I opened the door to find Mom standing in my hallway, face flushed with what I couldn't tell if it was anger or the exertion of 3 flights of stairs. "You're moving to California," she demanded, pushing past me into the apartment, already invading my new space. "Without discussing it with your family first?" I closed the door slowly. "I accepted a job offer, Mom. It's an excellent opportunity." "Opportunity," she spat the word, like it was poison. "You're abandoning us. How could you be so selfish?" The script was familiar, achingly so. But something had changed. Her words didn't land with the same crushing weight. Instead, they just hovered in the air between us, stripped of their power. "I'm not abandoning anyone," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'm building my life." Mom's phone rang. She answered immediately, her face softening as she saw the caller ID. "Pearl?" "Yes, I'm with her now." I could hear Pearl's frantic voice through the speaker. "We needed you here, Royalty. Dad's blood pressure is up again. The doctor says stress is a factor." The implication hung heavy. My decisions, my independence, were causing Dad's health problems. My absence was selfish. I watched Mom's face as she listened, her expression shifting between concern for Dad and a flicker of satisfaction at having another weapon against me. "I need to build my own life," I repeated when she ended the call. Mom's eyes narrowed. "If you leave, don't expect us to welcome you back." The statement was meant to terrify me, to bring me to my knees with the ultimate threat of family rejection. Instead, it clarified everything. "I've never felt truly welcomed anyway," I said. The words emerged without bitterness, simple and true. Mom left without another word. I returned to my packing, my hands steady. Marcus showed up at 6 the next morning to help load the moving truck, despite the early hour and freezing temperatures. He brought coffee and bagels, his breath misting in the cold air. "You're really doing this," he said, hefting a box labeled "Kitchen." "I'm really doing this," I confirmed. Rachel called as we finished loading. "Check the glove compartment when you get in the truck," she instructed. "Don't peek until you're on the road." 3 hours later, at a gas station in Nebraska, I found her care package: homemade cookies, a playlist titled Freedom Sounds, and a card that simply read, "Proud of you." The 4-day drive to Los Angeles felt like a physical untethering. With every mile, that invisible rope connecting me to Boulder loosened. My new colleagues welcomed me with genuine interest in my design ideas. My first client, an entertainment lawyer, listened attentively, never once questioning my worth or expertise. My therapy sessions continued via video, now focused on building healthy boundaries, not just surviving without them. "How does it feel to be valued professionally?" Dr. Mercer asked during one session. "Foreign," I admitted, "but good. Really, really good." That first winter, I changed my phone number, didn't give it to my family. I set up email filters, directing their messages to a folder I'd only check when I felt centered, strong. My Christmas card was simple: a photo of my new apartment, a brief well-wish. No desperate attempts to win approval. Instead of flying home, I hosted a small dinner party. My new colleagues and neighbors filled my dining room with laughter. The contrast to any family holiday was stark. Later, watching the LA lights, my phone silent beside me, I whispered, "Their opinion of me is not my reality." On my desk, my design portfolio, the beginnings of Casa Row, stood tall. Beside it, a spreadsheet documenting every loan to Pearl. Evidence of boundaries crossed and lessons learned. My bank account, once a revolving door of family emergencies, now grew steadily. My calendar filled with client meetings, not obligation-driven visits home. A quiet recognition settled. The path ahead required preparation. One day, they'd try to pull me back. When that day came, I would be ready. Not with anger, but with clarity. 3 years in LA transformed everything. The woman who'd sent those rejected lights now ran Casa Row, a design firm with a months-long client waitlist. My phone buzzed with an Architectural Digest email, a profile titled Royalty Torres, Warmth with Boundaries. The irony wasn't lost on me. Personal style reflects personal journey, I'd told the interviewer. Each boundary in my designs echoed the ones in my life. Financial security was now my bedrock. As Dr. Levine said, it was the first step toward emotional security. Then, the calm shattered. A Christmas card on handmade paper, elegant calligraphy, Unmistakably moms. No demands, just holiday wishes, a family photo. Then Pearl's wedding invitation, a handwritten note. Family should be together for milestone moments. The timing I knew was calculated. Aunt Susan texted, "Sweetie, don't you think it's time to reconcile? A mutual friend from Boulder ran into your mom. She misses you terribly. Maybe for Christmas?" It was a coordinated campaign. Not confrontation, but a gentle surrounding. Pressure from all sides. That evening, in Dr. Levine's protective office, I told her they've made contact. Multiple approaches, all within days. She nodded. And how does that feel? 3 years ago, I'd have been a panicked mess. Today, I recognize the emotion immediately. Fear, I admitted, but different. Not panic. More like apprehension. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's significant progress, she smiled. Their tactics don't work anymore. I see them for what they're now. The escalation arrived, just as I expected. Pearl's frantic text about a honeymoon emergency, car rental trouble in Hawaii, immediate funds needed. Submit your receipts when you return, I typed, fingers steady. I'll see if the travel insurance I recommended covers it. 3 years ago, I'd have wired money instantly. Days later, Mom called. My aunt, picking up, urgently contacted me. Your mother's blood pressure spiked. She's asking for you. I calmly replied, after confirming with a nurse friend that Mom's admission was for routine monitoring. Please let her know I hope she feels better soon. Then Dad's call. The first direct communication in years. His gruff voice filled my kitchen. Royalty, this family is falling apart without you. Your mother's health, Pearl's struggling marriage. You've built your fancy career while we've been suffering. The accusation hung in the air. 3 years ago, those words would have been physical blows. Tonight, they slid off me like water. I'm sorry to hear everyone's having difficulties, Dad. How are you doing personally? My simple question, focusing on him, an individual, not the collective, threw him off balance. He stumbled through a response, then quickly defaulted to his script about family obligation. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen island, breathing deeply. The coordinated campaign was transparent. Each message designed to pull me back into the role of family supporter. My aunt called a week later. I don't understand you anymore, Royalty. Your mother needed comfort, and you sent a text message. What happened to the girl who always put family first? She learned that family goes both ways, I answered quietly. Caring doesn't mean sacrificing my well-being. Pearl says you've gotten cold since moving to California. Pearl says many things, I replied, surprised by my own calm. I've simply learned that love without boundaries isn't sustainable. The silence stretched, then my aunt sighed. Your mother admitted something yesterday, she said. She said, Royalty doesn't need us anymore. She sounded almost defeated. The words should have hurt. Instead, they confirmed my suspicion. Their distress wasn't about missing me, but missing what I provided. Christmas approached with a strange new peace. My boundaries held steady. Pearl's messages grew desperate, sprinkled with selfish and abandoned family. Dad even sent a brief email acknowledging my latest design award, a grudging recognition. The cracks in their narrative were widening. I'd changed, yes, but not to coldness. To clarity. Then, the email arrived, 3 weeks before Christmas. Mom's name in my inbox. We want to redecorate for Christmas this year, it read. Who better than our talented designer? Pearl says your work is all over those fancy magazines now. Pearl's second baby is coming in February, you know. You wouldn't want to miss Christmas with both grandkids, would you? Ellie asks about her aunt sometimes. 5 years of boundaries, and they still thought a hint of family access would make me drop everything. The exchange was clear, my professional services for a seat at their Christmas table. The phone buzzed. Aunt Lydia. Royalty, honey, it's been too long. Christmas is about family. Don't you think it's time to make peace? My schedule is fully booked through January, I replied, my voice steady. More texts. Uncle Robert. Cousin Samantha. The coordinated campaign was in full swing. Pearl's voicemail arrived. Her voice breaking dramatically. Ellie asks Santa to meet you for Christmas. How do I explain that her aunt doesn't want to see her? I deleted it. But the wait lingered. Days later, Dad's email. Royalty, this punishment has gone on long enough. Whatever grievances you're holding on to, isn't family worth more? I closed my laptop, looked out at the shimmering LA lights. My assistant's voice broke my thoughts. Royalty, I have an interesting inquiry. It was an email from Alina R. requesting design services for a Colorado mountain home. The address stopped my heart, my parents' house. Send me the contract they signed, I said quietly. Minutes later, there it was, Pearl Reyes's electronic signature. This wasn't love. It was manipulation, dressed as reconnection. I was drafting my response when my phone rang. An unknown Colorado number. I almost ignored it. But something made me answer. Hello. A small voice trembled. Aunt Royalty? This is Ellie, Mommy Pearl's daughter. My body froze before my half-decorated Christmas tree. She was 5 now. Hello, Ellie, I managed, my professional calm shattering. Mommy said you don't like us. Is that true? Is that why you never come see us? The question landed like a physical blow. I closed my eyes, caught between honesty and protecting this innocent child. No, sweetheart, I said softly. That's not true. Then why don't you ever come home? I sank onto my couch, searching for words. Sometimes grown-ups need time apart to figure things out. It doesn't mean I don't care about you. I'm learning to draw houses, she offered suddenly. Mommy says you make beautiful houses for people. I do, I said, a genuine smile finally touching my lips. I'd love to see your drawings sometime. Really? Her hope was untainted. Really. And I'm going to send you something special for Christmas, okay? Just for you. After a few more minutes of surprisingly sweet conversation about her favorite colors and animals, I ended the call with genuine care, not the manufactured emotion her mother likely expected me to display. I sat in silence for exactly 5 minutes, then opened my laptop. My response to Alina R. was brief and professional. I do not take projects from clients using false identities. Wishing the family a peaceful holiday. Then I crafted a new email, addressed to my entire family. I attached screenshots of Mom's original design request, the fake client inquiry from Alina R. and Pearl's signature. My message was simple, no accusations, no emotional language, just facts and boundaries. My design services are not available to family. Deception is not the foundation for reconciliation. Please respect my professional boundaries as you would any other designer. For Ellie, I selected a small kaleidoscope from my personal collection, a beautiful one that transforms ordinary light into something magical when you look at things differently. I wrapped it carefully, addressing it without a return label. Inside, a simple note, from someone who always hopes you'll be loved the right way. The responses came quickly. Mom's frantic voicemail. Pearl's angry text. How dare you embarrass us like this after everything we've done for you? I let them all go to voicemail, to message archives, to the dusty place where their power over me used to live. This was my victory, not through vengeance, but through values. Not through angry confrontation, but through the power of chosen response over reactive engagement. The final boundary stood established. Respect as a prerequisite for any relationship. I placed my phone on silent, returning to decorate my Christmas tree. Each ornament felt like a piece of the life I'd built, the career, the friendships, the knowing that my worth didn't depend on their recognition. Outside, Los Angeles sparkled, a constellation of lights forming new patterns, new possibilities. In 3 weeks, my apartment would host friends who saw me clearly, sharing food and laughter and genuine connection. And somewhere in Boulder, a little girl would open a kaleidoscope and discover that sometimes things look different when you hold them to the light. Christmas Eve in Los Angeles. The amber candle on my Silver Lake dining table cast a warm glow over handmade stoneware plates. It felt nothing like Boulder's snowy evenings, yet somehow, it felt more like Christmas than any I'd ever experienced. The table, set for 8, gleamed under pendant lights I'd designed myself. Colleagues, neighbors, friends, they were more than just categories now. Marcus adjusted a centerpiece of eucalyptus and white roses, while Rachel arranged her grandmother's tamales beside my calabasas. Traditional flavors mixing with California sensibilities, just like my life now. Perfect, I whispered, surveying the space. This home, Once echoing with anxious phone calls and trembling hands, now radiated security, built on choice, not obligation. My gaze drifted to the mantel, where a small, wrapped package sat, displayed in a shadow box. The Christmas lights, returned unopened 3 years ago. What once felt like a raw wound now served as art, a powerful reminder of how far I'd traveled. Same situation, holidays without biological family, but an entirely different outcome. When everyone had arrived, I raised my glass. To finding family in unexpected places, I said, my voice steady, filled with peaceful acknowledgement. No longer seeking approval, but giving genuine appreciation instead. And to boundaries, Rachel added with a wink. Beautiful, healthy, necessary boundaries. Everyone laughed, but the recognition was deep. These people knew my story. They'd witnessed my journey. Remember when you thought asking for help with that project meant you were failing? Marcus said later, refilling my glass. I smiled. Took me forever to recognize that needing support isn't weakness. And now you're mentoring that kid from UCLA? Jenna from my design team chimed in. Sophia, I corrected, her family background isn't unlike mine. Sometimes knowing someone else made it through similar waters makes all the difference. As we moved to the living room for dessert, I glanced at my journal. This morning's entry was still fresh. Therapist says maintaining boundaries for 5 years deserves celebration. Maybe the real gift was learning my worth wasn't measured by family validation. Marcus raised his glass again. To royalty, who showed us all how to reign. Rachel's smile, across the room, carried the weight of full witness. She'd been there from the beginning. Jennifer, my neighbor, touched my arm. That advice you gave me about my parents' holiday guilt trip saved my sanity. First Christmas I haven't spent in tears. I squeezed her hand. Family is earned, not just born, I told her. You're not cold for having requirements. After dessert, I slipped away briefly, returning with a small gift. For you, I said, handing Jennifer a box containing handcrafted string lights, similar to those on my mantel. Her eyes questioned me. Some lights aren't meant to be returned, I explained quietly. They're meant to guide us home to ourselves. Hours later, alone beside my Christmas tree, the doorbell rang. A delivery. An envelope with my mother's handwriting. I opened it slowly. A simple card, subdued tone, no demands, no manipulation, just holiday wishes. In the past, this would have unraveled me. Tonight, I simply placed it on the mantel without emotional turmoil, a peaceful acknowledgement of connection without surrendering boundaries. I watched the Los Angeles lights twinkling below. My phone lit up with a text from Ellie. Thank you for my special gift, Aunt Royalty. A small opening for a relationship on healthy terms, perhaps. Not the dramatic reconciliation Pearl would script, but something authentic instead. My journal lay open on the side table. I picked up my pen and wrote the final entry of the year. This year, I finally have a family, one I chose myself. Silence isn't coldness. It's a boundary built by someone who once cared too much. And Christmas doesn't need a crowd. It only needs the right people.